that nobody can look at the person the same way again? Have you ever seen an image of someone so terrible
in the world that were snapped at the most horrific time that could possibly be imagined?
Have you ever seen an image of someone so terrible?
From a man unintentionally tweeting explicit photos to a comedian going too far with an explicit joke, these are 10 photos that ruined people's lives. Number 10. The destructive power of the internet. Once hardly known online, Chris Chan became well known thanks to a string of provocative online actions and interactions heavily recorded and attacked by internet trolls. Originally Christine Weston Chandler, Chris Chan gained recognition for their quirky artwork and the development of the webcomic Sonichu, which mixed Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog. But Chris Chan's very personal and sometimes strange online presence would eventually bring them down, not only with regard to their artwork. Chris Chan's life played out for years in front of an audience of online viewers who both teased and controlled him. One of the pivotal events in this unsettling narrative occurred in 2007 when Chris Chan's "I'm a Virgin" sign photo was uploaded online. Originally meant as a personal statement of frustration, this picture swiftly went viral on the internet and was subjected to nasty ridicule and harassment. The picture turned into a trigger for an unrelenting trolling campaign spanning Chris Chan's life for years to come. More private images, videos, and messages leaked online as trolls dug further into Chris Chan's personal life, frequently resulting in more humiliation and distress. The internet seemed to savor in recording every element of Chris Chan's life, turning every deed into target for criticism. From exposing very personal hardships to catching embarrassing events, the internet left no stone unturned in its search of material to support this digital spectacle. Chris Chan experienced harassment not only in online environments. In an effort to elicit a reaction that might be captured and shared online, trolls would routinely call their house, send unwelcome packages, and even visit their residence. Chris Chan's mental health suffered greatly from this ongoing invasion of privacy. It isolated them even more from reality and drove them farther into the online world where they both were a victim and a participant. The crisis peaked in 2021 when a very unsettling phone call leaked exposing Chris Chan's involvement in an improper relationship with their own mother, who has dementia.
Mainly I was very horny and I need the true and honest relationship to come about, so obviously this was one of the best ways to do it.
The tape went fast online and caused indignation, shock, and more mocking. Apart from raising public attention, the leaked audio resulted in actual repercussions for Chris Chan. Chris Chan was arrested and accused of incest, a major criminal offense with severe penalties following the leak. Once eccentric online personality had drawn police attention due to possible jail time and public humiliation. Wide-ranging media coverage of the court case made Chris Chan a cautionary story of how internet celebrity, especially when motivated by harassment and ridicule, may have terrible results. Chris Chan's constant exposure and harassment over the years surely had a part in their declining mental state and the actions leading to their arrest. It serves as a sobering reminder of the possible repercussions of online harassment, as well as the intrusive scrutiny that usually goes along with internet celebrity. For Chris Chan, the mix of personal sensitivity and unrelenting online abuse produced a perfect storm that finally brought him down. This narrative is a sobering lesson on the negative aspects of internet celebrity and the effects of constant online abuse. Although the internet can be a creative and connecting tool, it can also be a haven for cruelty and obsession, where lives might be destroyed in the space of a glance. For Chris Chan, the cost of internet infamy was far more than they could have ever imagined, transforming a life once full of vibrant characters and creativity into a tragic story of scandal and shame. Number 9. A snapshot of shame. Once a rising star in American politics, Anthony Weiner was renowned for his tenacious attitude as a New York congressman and passionate speeches. But one picture would quickly send his personal life and career into a downhill slide from which he would never recover. Weiner unintentionally tweeted publicly instead of a private message in 2011 after a picture surfaced showing him sporting just knickers. Clearly meant to be provocative, this picture highlighted his torso and bulging underpants. Weiner first claimed that his Twitter account had been hacked, but he had to admit he had sent the picture as the media frenzy developed and more proof surfaced. Rising to become known as Weinergate, the scandal caused him to resign from Congress. Had this marked the end of Weiner's problems, his career might have been salvaged, but things only grew worse. While running for mayor of New York City in 2013, in an effort at a political comeback, more clear images and chats Weiner had sent under the alias Carlos Danger surfaced. Though his wife, Huma Abedin, and supporters gave him a second chance, these disclosures destroyed his mayoral campaign and landed him in a far-off 5th place. When it came out that Weiner had been sharing sexually explicit messages with a 15-year-old girl in 2016, the matter grew more unsettling. This resulted in an FBI probe in which Weiner's laptop was taken and more damaging material, including emails crucial to the inquiry on Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, was found. The effects were broad, influencing Weiner's life as well as the 2016 U.S. presidential contest. Weiner originally tweeted a picture that was only the tip of the iceberg, which set off a chain reaction of events that not only ended his political career, but also resulted in a 21-month prison sentence for forwarding obscene content to a minor. Once full of promise and possibility, his life became a sequence of scandals and regrets that permanently tarnished his name. The narrative of Anthony Weiner serves as a sobering reminder of how one error, caught in one picture, might have terrible results. His quick and permanent fall from grace shows how quickly a picture posted online can destroy lives, professions, and reputations. Number 8. The Curse of the Click. Imagine yourself as an early 1960s thrill seeker during the height of the space race when humanity was stretching the bounds of what was feasible. It was a time of inquiry, invention, and a little reckless behavior. People yearned to reach above and farther than anyone had ever accomplished to touch the stars. Then there was Nick Piantanida, a daredevil-spirited truck driver who yearned to shatter the world record for the highest parachute jump. Nick did no fit your usual astronaut nor professional stuntman. An ordinary man with an amazing dream. His aim was straightforward. From the stratosphere itself, leap from the edge of space, higher than anyone had dared. He carried himself to an altitude where the Earth curved beneath him, and the sky above turned the inky black of space using a balloon, much as those used in scientific study. Nick received no official instruction for this kind of endeavor. Driven by a mix of fear and obsession, he was a passionate amateur. He made 3 efforts towards the world record. The first 2 were catastrophic failures driven by technical problems and potentially fatal faults. But Nick was driven to leave his mark on history and was not one to give up readily. Just a few thousand feet from the edge of space, Nick's balloon rose to an incredible 123,500 feet on his 3rd and last effort in May 1966. Disaster struck just as he was about to record a new world mark. The valve controlling oxygen flow to his helmet malfunctioned as he got ready for his historic jump. Nick was fast losing consciousness while his suit started to depressurize. It was a terrible situation. Confused and hypoxic, he radioed for aid, but it was too late. Nick's balloon plunged back to Earth as his ground crew started an emergency descent. Although he survived the fall, his lack of oxygen had left him seriously brain damaged. He spent the last months of his life in a coma and never woke up before passing death from his injuries. The narrative of Nick Piantanida is a sobering reminder of the dangers associated with stretching human capacity. This story is of bravery and ambition, as well as of the thin line separating wisdom from heroism. Although some saw Nick as a fearless adventurer, others considered him as an amateur reckless out of scope. His sad death is a warning about the perils of dreaming too grandly without the required safety measures. Ultimately, Nick's bold ambition dominated both his life and death. Neither a scientific community nor a government space program provided him with support. Though he was only a man with a dream, that dream brought about a sad ending. This narrative reminds us that, although the drive to reach excellence can produce amazing achievements, it can also have disastrous results if not restrained with care. For Nick specifically, the picture of his unconscious body being hauled from the balloon wreckage caught the instant his dream became a nightmare. This picture represents the dangers of stretching beyond human capacity, a sobering warning that even the most audacious goals can bring about disaster if ambition runs ahead of readiness. Number 7. The Odd One Out. It's likely that you have seen this image before, but you might not be aware of its full context. Yes, it happened during the Olympics, as the photo shows the competitors standing on the medal stand. But it's more than just an Olympic tale from Mexico City in 1968. Tommie Smith and John Carlos, two American runners who placed first and second in the 200-meter finals, are the subject of this story. However, their actions after winning proved to be more significant than their victories. They made what became known as the Black Power gesture while they were in front of the entire world on the award stage. This was a statement that unmistakably placed their names in the annals of the civil rights movement, not merely an act of kindness. But while we focus on Smith and Carlos, that image also features another person. There's a man standing there with a somewhat neutral expression, looking a little lost. That individual was Australian athlete Peter Norman, who won the silver medal that particular day. Peter Norman, who appears to be unaware of the proper use of his hands, was fully aware of what was going to occur. He had spoken with Smith and Carlos earlier in the day, and he was aware of the magnitude of the protest they were organizing. Norman was not only supporting them, but he actively participated in the endeavor. Norman was the one who suggested that they wear black gloves, and when he moved to the podium, he wore a civil rights badge on his tracksuit. One would think that a hero like this one, an athlete who is willing to demonstrate such empathy, would be welcomed by society. Regretfully, that was not going to happen. The political environment in Australia at the time was harsh and unforgiving. It was a requirement of the immigration policy that only white people could enter. The notion that Norman was in favor of racial equality in public was not something his native country could embrace. Norman seemed to have struck a blow to the status quo in the country, and the reaction was swift and unwavering. Norman was one of the fastest men on the planet and had set the second fastest time globally, but he would not be allowed to compete in any more Olympic trials. Norman was eliminated from the Olympic stage when Australia failed to field any sprinters for the 200-meter event at the 1972 Munich Games. Not only was this a severe blow to one's career, but it was also a personal tragedy. Following this, Norman went through a depressive and alcohol-dependent phase. The years passed, and many anticipated that Norman would eventually receive his just desserts by the time of the 2000 Sydney Olympics. But in a cruel irony, Norman was again left out. He was among the select few Australian Olympians who was denied the opportunity to participate in the Games' traditional lap of honor. It demonstrated the extent to which his own nation had shunned him and abandoned him to face the outside world on his own. Norman made the decision to stand on the right side of history, which is why all of this occurred. But occasionally, even the good guys are mistaken for the bad guys. Number 6. A big misunderstanding. Imagine being a global bad guy after carrying out a good deed that you feel is right. Dick Middleton was a police officer in the American South during the Civil Rights Movement, and that is precisely what happened to him. You may have seen the infamous picture where a young black protester appears to be being attacked by Middleton, a white police officer, and his dog. The picture gained prominence as a representation of racial violence and was eventually made into a statue in Birmingham. The thing is, though, that the image you see does not tell the entire tale. Middleton's story was examined by Malcolm Gladwell in his podcast, Revisionist History. The real events of that day were far more convoluted. Gladwell claims that Walter Gadsden, the young protester, unintentionally ran into Middleton. Instinctively, the officer's dog lunged towards Gadsden. Middleton had no intention of sickening the child with the dog. The contrary was actually true. He was attempting to both push Gadsden away and restrain the dog. But for a fraction of a second, the image captured by the camera appeared completely different. In addition, people assumed the worst during the tense civil rights movement. That picture meant Middleton would receive hate mail and threats for the rest of her life. He continued to work, but it took a tremendous toll on his family and his life. This was unfortunate because, as you will see, there are those who truly deserve this wrath because they exist in the world. Number 5. A joke gone too far. Al Franken's decline from prominence was truly remarkable. The most unexpected victim of the wave of sexual misconduct allegations that swept through Hollywood and DC in late 2017 was revealed. Former comedian turned Senator Al Franken had been outspoken about the way that women's accusations against powerful men were frequently disregarded. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, broadcaster Leanne Tweeden made accusations against Franken. She included a picture with her story that would be the final straw for Franken's political career. In the image, which was shot in the middle of the 2000s while Franken was on a USO tour, he was seen smiling while pretending to prod Tweeden's breasts while she slept. The accusations weren't the only thing that killed him. It was that obscene picture. Franken attempted to downplay the image as a joke, but it was just too incriminating. Franken's career was over as more women came forward with similar tales. His once bright political future lay in ruins when he resigned. But in the grand scheme of misunderstandings, this one comes in first. Number 4. A strange commercialization. In 1995, there was an act of domestic terrorism in the United States called the Oklahoma City bombing. It killed 168 people, some of them children. Among the ash, smoke, and broken glass, a picture was taken that would come to represent how terrible that day was. The picture that went around the world shows a firefighter holding a baby's dead body. But the history of the picture is just as complicated as the way it makes people feel. That picture was taken by a man who wasn't a professional photographer or journalist. He was from the gas company, and his camera was in the right place at the right time. His name was Lester LaRue. He did what Newsweek asked him to do when he heard the explosion. He grabbed his camera and ran to the scene. LaRue thought at first that he owned the rights to the picture. He was the one who took it, but things went wrong when the baby's mother spoke out against turning her child's death into a commodity. What made things worse was when LaRue's boss, the gas company, claimed the picture, saying that it belonged to the company since LaRue was at work and had used the equipment. After that, LaRue wasn't ready to fight a legal war. LaRue only had a bunch of bills from his long and expensive court case with the gas company. The gas company, on the other hand, had a lot of money and a team of lawyers on its side, so LaRue had nothing left. Even worse, there was another photographer, Charles Porter, who was very close to LaRue while they both took the picture. Porter won the Pulitzer Prize for his picture, but LaRue's life was ruined. For what he did, he had to face the consequences. But the next person on this list has been facing their own consequences behind closed doors. Number 3. Regrets that last forever. This picture of Marines raising the American flag on the island of Iwo Jima during World War II is likely one you've seen. Records of this picture have been used in history books, documentaries, and even movies. In that picture, everyone thought that the men would be heroes for the rest of their lives. But things aren't that simple. The picture became a symbol of American bravery and people's strength. But the people in it who fought for their country also had their own problems and struggles, which were not as exciting as one might think. There are 6 men in the picture who are raising the flag. 3 of them died in the clash that followed. They left the pitch, were flown home, and were then shown off all over. Back in the US, they were praised as heroes to boost morale, but not everyone was ready for them to become stars overnight. Ira Hayes, one of the 3 Native American men who raised the flag, was one of the people who made it out alive. Hayes did not want to be well known or a public face of the cause. His only goal was to stay with his friends and finish the battle as soon as possible. The picture was out in the open though, so it was almost impossible to hide. Hayes was found out, which made him very sad, and he had to leave the front lines and join the government's side. Hayes felt like this unwanted fame was always getting in the way of his life. People would come up to him for autographs or to hear his story for the rest of his life. Hayes didn't feel proud though. He was filled with guilt that he had left his friends behind. Eventually, this inner struggle led him down a dark path, and he became an alcoholic. Sad to say, his life was cut short. Next, we'll talk about a case that will make you completely shocked. Number 1. A comedian's tragedy. Kathy Griffin is a comedian who found out the hard way that you can't cross certain lines. In 2017, she posed for a picture with a fake-a-head cut off that looked like President Donald Trump at the time. She wanted to say something strong, but the response was much stronger than she thought it would be. The picture made a lot of people angry, and the response was quick and harsh. Griffin said he was sorry, but it was too late. She lost jobs, was fired from her CNN job hosting New Year's Eve, and was put on a list of people who can't work in the entertainment business. Griffin tried to fight back. She even took back her apology and said she was being persecuted for her political views. Of course, her career was already in bad shape, and soon she was performing in faraway places like Beirut, away from the attention she used to get. Enjoy your next video, and we'll see you soon.